jump into probably the biggest talking point for Texas Tech this offseason. And call me out in the comments if you want in terms of me being wrong here. But I think the biggest storyline by far has been the health of Behren Morton. I think that that's fair to say. We have this quote from Behren Morton, as you can see on the screen right now. This is from Adam Rittenberg. You can see his qualifications over there. Senior writer, college football at ESPN, ESPN Plus, also on radio host and everything like that. But here at Big 12 Media Days, Texas Tech quarterback Behren Morton told us he's 100% recovered from the throwing shoulder injury he battled last season. He saw several specialists in late spring and began a program throwing 75 balls 4 times a week. He can now throw whenever he wants. Now, there's a lot to unpack here in the sense that, well, is he? Right? Like, I get it from the standpoint of Texas Tech fans. Are we sure he's 100% healthy? Obviously, you have to take it at their word right now when it comes to Behren Morton. But you think about the spring and what happened with him, right? He got shut down midway through spring practice, went to go see multiple specialists, as Adam said in that tweet right there. I believe it was Don Williams of the Lubbock Avalanche Journal that had a sensational article about really what has gone on with Behren Morton this offseason in his shoulder. So be sure to go check that out. I can put it down in the comments below. But Behren went to multiple specialists, most notably a guy in Birmingham, Alabama. And then after that, we didn't hear him going to any other specialists, right? It was quiet. We didn't really hear anything. And then all of a sudden, you get that Twitter notification, you hear that tweet go off, and it's Behren Morton just dropping 2 highlights. Him throwing the football, both to Coy Aiken, both deep balls, right? And you're thinking to yourself, okay, this is his message that he's 100% back. And it's obviously good to hear that he was throwing 75 balls a day, 4 times a week, right? And now he can do whatever he pleases. Because let's face it, if Behren Morton is not as close to 100% as possible for Texas Tech in 2024, every dream and aspiration you had for the Red Raiders this year to win 9+ games, 10 games, 11, whatever, if you're drinking all the Kool-Aid, busting through that wall, just like the Family Guy reference, like, it's gone, right? Because, yeah, Cameron Brown, I like his skill set. I like what Will Hammond is as a true freshman. I think he's probably the future quarterback for Texas Tech whenever Behren Morton's time in the 806 is done, right, as the QB1. But Joe McGuire said it himself today. Like, Behren Morton has changed this offseason for the better in the sense of there's a relief knowing that he's QB1, right? There's no competition. He's the guy. He can see the change not only in mannerisms from Behren Morton, but how he's speaking in the locker room, the presence that he commands in the locker room. And there's something to be said for that in the sense of having it on the field, right? If QB1 is healthy and Texas Tech has not had a quarterback start every game all year, right? Like every game of the year for Texas Tech since Nick Shimonek. Think about that. The year after Patrick Mahomes left. Patrick Mahomes has gone on to win 3 Super Bowls, okay? Didn't play for a year in Kansas City. Has started the past 6, been gone for 7 years, and you've only had one quarterback start all of the games in terms of him being QB1 from the jump and playing the rest. You have to have Behren Morton healthy. And to see this is obviously a positive. You're going to want to see it in camp. You're going to want to see those videos. But at the same time, this is what you want to hear if you're a Texas Tech fan from the sheer standpoint. Again, we saw what Behren looked like last year. He was fighting through it. Reports came out that he did not throw a football during the week at all, leading up to any game after West Virginia. He only threw on game days, right? You can't progress that way, right? Your offensive line obviously wasn't as good last year. You hope that that gets better, and we'll talk about the offensive line here in a little bit. But for me, when I look at Behren Morton and everything, he's the guy that elevates Texas Tech, and you have to have him. So again, going to put the quote back on the screen for you to look at it one more time. I'll read over it. Here at Big 12 Media Days, Texas Tech QB Behren Morton told us he's 100% recovered from the throwing shoulder injury he battled last season. He saw several specialists in late spring and began a program throwing 75 balls 4 times a week. Now he can throw whenever he wants. Again, he is by far the biggest piece for Texas Tech to reach their goals that they have this coming up season. And don't get it twisted. Joey McGuire wasn't out there today saying, oh, hey, we're going to run the Big 12. Everything runs through Lubbock. Nah, that's not what he said this time. But don't get it twisted. Joey McGuire had the utmost confidence in his team, and you could see it from everybody out there. Caleb Rogers even tweeted out, hey, we're here in Las Vegas to talk our shit, right? He used the poop emoji. So I appreciate the PG-ness. Here on the channel, we don't do that. But Behren Morton, and having him healthy is pivotal for the Red Raiders in multiple ways. And again, a guy that you think is going to do great things for Texas Tech, highly touted quarterback, was the gem of all gyms when it came to the Matt Wells era. Remember, that's who recruited him. Obviously, he wanted to be a Red Raider, has that lineage in his blood, been a Red Raider since he was born, all the baby pictures and everything. But hearing that from him, hearing the throwing program that he's been on, and now going into this part of the summer, really where you're starting to ramp up, and now he's throwing to his teammates, because that was really one of the biggest worries for me was how much was he going to be able to throw before fall camp or even game number 1, right? Because you have so many new guys in that wide receiver room, most notably Micah, Josh, Caleb. Got to say payday there because, again, baller nickname. But when you look at everything, Behren Morton's a game changer. He's taken notice of people talking trash about him. And again, has he lived up to the hype so far? No, but he hasn't been healthy, right? A healthy Behren Morton changes the landscape for Texas Tech. And to hear this news this far out from fall camp is absolutely massive for Texas Tech. Not only for Texas Tech, but for the fans too, because it was a big question mark. And again, I understand you have to take what they're saying at face value. It's words. You want to see it on the field. I wholeheartedly understand that. But at the same time, I didn't know if he was going to be able to go through fall camp, right? Like they were saying he was, but to hear that he's actually throwing, to see some of the videos out there is huge for Texas Tech, because it's one of those deals where you have to think, okay, the offensive line is going to be better, at least in theory. I think it will be, and I'll tell you why here in a little bit. But I also think you look at the wide receiver group, much improved. You know what you have in Taj Brooks. The tight ends will be used this year, people. I promise you. They have 3 tight ends that are getting NFL grades, according to Joey McGuire. The reason that they weren't used last year is because they had to use them on the offensive line as an extra blocker because the offensive line was so bad. One of the main reasons that you started 3 quarterbacks last year because you couldn't keep them upright. You had 28 sacks last year given up, okay, if you were Texas Tech. You got to keep Behren Morton upright. Caleb Rogers himself said that their goal is to have 10 or fewer sacks. Is that ambitious? Yeah, I think so. But you go out and you address the offensive line from the standpoint of not only in the portal, but maybe even more importantly, the coaching hire in the sense of Clay McGuire. Clay McGuire was the guy that Joey wanted to hire at first. It didn't come together. They had Hamby. Hamby got dismissed. They hire Clay McGuire away from Washington State. That's going to be the pivotal group to keep Behren Morton upright. But again, Behren Morton at 100% going into the season is massive for Texas Tech because there are a buku amount of playmakers on this offense. This is probably one of the most talented offenses in terms of skill position units from wide receiver, running back, tight end that Texas Tech maybe has ever had. Again, you're going to put the Crabtrees of the world and some of those Mike Leach receiving groups ahead of them, obviously. But they're in the conversation in terms of high up there on the list, okay? Because Josh Kelly is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the country. Micah Hudson, 5-star. Caleb Payday Douglas was a starting wide receiver at Florida, the number 2 wide receiver there. Then you got Coy Aiken coming back. You also have Dre McCray. You've got Jordan Brown healthy. Then you look at the tight ends. Jean-Carlos Miller led his division in football at Elon in terms of yards after the catch. You've got Jalen Conyers, a guy that has grown up with Behren Morton. You got Mason Tharp back and healthy. You've got Cameron Valdez coming back, who I expect to take a leap. You got Cam Dickey back there as a true freshman who could make an impact at the running back position. And then obviously Taj Brooks. That's what's surrounding a potentially healthy Behren Morton. All right. That's huge. And if he is healthy, and you got to take it for what it is right now, go ahead, put that emoji, the rising chart emoji, because Texas Tech, they may have been picked 9th, and you can tell say, RC, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, whatever. But if Behren Morton is healthy, ninth is far, far too low for the Red Raiders.